taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. It's June 29th, 2019, which means we are just about exactly halfway through 2019, which is pretty insane, actually. Back in January, E3 seemed so far away, and now we've blown past it and are talking about all kinds of things in the aftermath of it. And in that vein, we have a very special guest today that I'm very excited to introduce you to. But anyway, this is the Saturday morning edition of the show. We do this show twice weekly, Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings. And my name is Asheninity, and I'm here as always with Cybsidian. How are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing good. It's been a wild week. Oh my.
Absolutely. You see on the thumbnail there, our special guest today, Andrew Alliance. He is the editor-in-chief of the show Radio, which you have a podcast, Andrew, and perhaps you can tell us a little more about what you do. But welcome to the show today. We're excited to have you.
Oh, thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for the invitation. I appreciate it. I mean, the show Radio has been a project since 2009, August of 2009. It's really a tech, gaming, and entertainment podcast focusing on those things, as well as tips of, I guess I would call it motivational tips for individuals to come into the industry, whether that's podcasting or content creation, to do that stuff, and life lessons learned along the way. So
you've been at this for a while then. 10 years. Wow. That's an incredible an incredibly long time. And you were at E3 this year, and you got some It looked like you had a lot of fun there. You have a lot of interviews up on your YouTube channel, and you especially talked to a few people from CD Projekt Red, which looks like you had a great time. You also saw the gameplay footage, not footage, but you saw the live gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077. And
it was really good. It was really good. So the interviews went well. So a little backstory of that particular conversation. I had the conversation with Mateusz. He was amazing, right? But prior to all that, so we saw the footage, and I did not have an interview scheduled at all, right? Because I usually do my stuff on the go when I get to E3. So it's always a pleasure to get there again, right? So I actually doubled back to schedule that, because the first time I asked for that particular interview with Mateusz, they were like, "Hey, we don't have anything." So I said, "Cool." So I went back, I think Thursday at 2:30, and then I was like, "Guys, I would love a conversation. I'm ready to go. Let's do it." And that's how the interview with Mateusz happened. But the whole thing that sparked probably even this conversation is the reaction video. I think it was about 2 minutes or whatever, from that experience of watching the Cyberpunk presentation. So we saw that, guys, let's just do something right now. Like, I don't care what we do. I may not see you guys again, but let's just record something right now based on what we just saw. And I think that's where, things started taking off.
That's right. You have that video pinned on your Twitter feed, which tells me it was a very significant moment for you as well, but it took on a bit of a viral status, and it's a great reaction video. I recognize, I recommend that everyone check it out, and you can look up Andrew Alliance or the show Radio on Twitter, and you'll be able to link to that. I have a link in the description to your YouTube channel, and then they can go from there. There's a link there to your Twitter feed. And that'll be front and center. It's an excellent reaction video, and I wasn't clear on your opinion though about whether or not we will be ready for this game. Maybe you can clear that up for us.
You're not ready. Nobody's ready, bro. Nobody's ready. And I think the excitement that fueled that, it's not so much as we briefly touched on the viral thing with the video, right? Because there's so many elements that go into that. We were tired, okay? We were hungry. We were excited, right? So there's that. We were ready to talk about the game. We had the appointment, okay? We were prepared. I think we were mature to a degree to have a moment like that. So there's different elements that take place for, and then the stars got aligned for a moment like that, right? I think it's at 100K or something like that at this point, something like that. So that whole thing happened, but when we got to that part, I was like, okay, we recorded the video, we're excited. I'm saying everybody's not ready. I'm hugging the team members, right, of Cyberpunk, and I'm like, dude, this is so great. I said, this is why we live and breathe games, right? And I saw individuals speaking Creole, which is a language that um, up with my family because I'm Haitian, right? Haitian American. I was born in Brooklyn, but my family's Haitian. So we spoke Creole, or they did. After a while, I didn't, but I understood everything that they said to me, and I responded in English, which was kind of weird thing growing up too. But I understood exactly what they were saying, and it was done so well, right? And I think that fueled the excitement of what was taking place in that video. And I'm like, dude, we enjoy so many good things, and the takeaway from the video, if you will, is can we just get back to the place where we're just enjoying dope things, right? Not so much controversies surrounding these titles, whatever the titles may be. And I think that to do, whether it's a rock paper or whatever of an article to fuel a certain aspect of what we're seeing, I think is the wrong way to lead the people that follow us in any capacity, right? And I think that in and of itself is passionate about in terms of the message to take away from that.
Right
No,
on.
I think that's I think that's probably the best message anybody should walk away with stuff in general. Is like, Occam's razor is used so very little today. It's like, and people are so they're looking for it. And it's true that controversies and outrage do tend to make more clicks, but it's not the clicks that help you sustain yourself, because you always have to one up the last controversy. So just replying to Broker Fox in the comments here, it's like, yeah, it makes those clicks, but if you track over the last, like, especially over, like, the longer you track, the worse it gets, right? So you go back like 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, and you look at like where companies first started that were relying on this, where they end up now, it's often like not where they want to be. They end up broke, or just rushing from one insane controversy to the other one. And as we've pointed out, sometimes that is for financial benefit. So, anyways, moving on to the actual content at large. What was your top, like, aside from the audio, what was your best gameplay moment? Where like, what factor of the actual gameplay really sticks out in your mind?
So thinking about it now, the motorcycle portion where you're riding around into the 6 different areas, as well as the Badlands, right? I think those are some of the things that they mentioned. I'm excited for the motorcycle portion because it reminds me of a game that I used to play. I think it's called Headhunter. The guy had, it was he had glasses and he had a motorcycle. I think he was like somewhat of a cop, renegade kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go around different towns, doing things in terms of mercenary type, right? So I love the fact that it had that motorcycle portion of a road rash type feel for me, because I used to love playing that game, right? So that was cool. The aesthetics of change your character's looks and stuff, customization is very, very deep, right? So I look forward to that. The fact that you can hack pretty much everything in the game, that's pretty cool. The fact that the narrative of the different bosses, whether if you don't take them out, that could play a different particular aspect of how the game is played for you later. I think that's interesting. So there's layers of things. I mean, graphically, the game is amazingly beautiful, right? No doubt about that. And the dialogue of making the different decisions along the way and how that affects players with you is cool. And then the world is vibrant, right? So it's just so many different things that there's to enjoy there.
That's fantastic. It does sound amazing. And speaking of character creation, your companion in the video, DJ Knight, who I believe is a Twitch streamer. I'm not terribly familiar with him, but apparently he's got quite a following, and he was with you in your reaction video, and he talked about the character creation, and he was really excited for it because he said he could make a character that looks exactly like himself with a mohawk, and I think he would look amazing with a mohawk, personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is really exciting. So tell me, I mean, with the character creation, was it that in depth that you could literally make yourself look like any person that's alive? Like you could make yourself look exactly like yourself in this game if you wanted to?
And the fact that it still feels like a work in progress with the the settings that were somewhat overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's like, all right, so let's make this character, the skin tone that we want, the haircut that we want, and keep it moving. No, it was like way more than that in terms of the amount of the detail that goes into that. So you could spend time, like if you're very specific and about how your character is going to look, you could spend a very long time just on that particular part before you even get to the game. So they're hard at work to make sure that anything that experience basically, let me see how I want to phrase that. They're hard at work to make sure the experience is everything that you'd want it to be. Since you've been waiting that long, you should definitely look forward to that. But yeah, it is that deep for customization.
That's fantastic, which means Obsidian is going to spend about 23 and a half hours designing his first character. I watched him create character. I watched him create his first character in Fallout 4, and he took forever in that one.
And I was trying to rush on that one.
And that was it looks like that one's barely going to have that one's barely going to touch what we're able to get in Cyberpunk 2077. And then
you're gonna spend some time.
Yeah, the other fellow that was with you in your reaction video, he talked about the skill trees and how in depth those are. Can you expand on that and what you saw in the gameplay as far as the skills, the classes, and the ways you're going to be able to branch out your character in terms of the actual skills and abilities that you can take on?
Yeah, so one of them definitely is the hacking one, right? You can actually go through the game without hurting anyone, and the way you do that is by hacking pretty much everything, whether that's a robot that's using the boxing mechanism or whatever. You can hack that robot, or you can hack the guns in a particular area. So you can do that, or you can just do guns blazing for a more powerful character, one that can rip open doors versus hacking the doors. And so you decide exactly how you want to play the game. So I think it's pretty interesting that they're allowing you to do that. This is according to my knowledge. You guys can correct me on this. I don't think it's the first game that introduces the fact that you can play through without hurting anyone. I don't think it's the first one. But I think the fact that you have so many things at your disposal with the guns and everything, but yet you can go that route to enjoy not only the stealth experience, but the environment itself, right? So the skill trees are going to allow you to decide how you want to go through the game, and very very similar to how you're creating your character, and the aesthetics of that is a deep rooted tree as well. And the thing is, like, we're looking at the screen, right? We're at the show, we're looking at the screen, we're like, dude, how am I going to have time to figure out how I want to craft this character? Because that's how much stuff we're looking at on the screen. And hopefully after, I would say, maybe Gamescom or whatever major show is left, they release that video, like they did something like that last year for the 48-minute thing that they had. But you're looking at a lot of time. So prep for that. Okay, so whatever time that you thought you were going to have in other games, you may want to just put those games down and focus on that. Yeah, it's seriously,
just clear out the rest of the year after April
crazy.
2020. Well, I have a feeling that
it's that crazy.
I believe it. I believe it, and I have a feeling that this is going to be a game that is going to be played for years to come, much like Skyrim is still incredibly popular, partly because of the modding community of that game. And we do know that CD Projekt Red does have modding on their radar, in the sense that it is something they would like to support. It's not something that they're going to include support for right at game launch, but it is something that they're hoping to down the road implement something. And if they add mods to this game, I think it's going to be great until the end of time.
Yeah, basically. Now
it's amazing.
Yeah. Now they are saying that they're gonna, this is on the list this time. I think more seriously than it was when it came to The Witcher. I think they kind of ran out of time on working on The Witcher stuff and working on The Witcher content before they had to move over, and that's a little bit why there was the delay that we ended up having. So we'll see exactly how far it goes, where it goes from here. But overall, I think we're going to be seeing something very interesting down the road. So.
I'd like to take a moment to welcome and thank everyone who is listening live today and who is busily chatting in the live chat. If you're listening live, please do say hello and send us your questions and comments. And specifically, if you have any questions for Andrew, we will try to get to those and give him as many of your questions as we can. And also, don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells YouTube that you appreciate this content. And so we really appreciate it when you do that. So if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to do that now, we would really appreciate it. Then you don't have to do it later. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up to the audio platforms. So if you want to get the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description and subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. In addition to the podcast, you'll find lots of other fun and informative gaming content there as well. We have a question for you from the chat already, Andrew. Did you see anything about exotics at all, like people with animal-like cybernetics?
Oh, I didn't see anything related to that. It's more so the things that you can there, as well as like opening the doors and ripping them open, that kind of a thing, but nothing in terms of exotics or anything like that.
Okay, yeah, so it was more about the functional cyberware, that kind of a thing. They do that lines up with, I mean, when we talked to Lalaya last week on the community podcast. She said that, well, actually, she didn't give an answer. She said she cannot comment on exotics at this point. So,
and that's fair, because they're still, working to make sure every part of the game is well done for the experience.
I have a bit of a feeling that that might be something that we will see in an expansion. And that'll be handled as kind of like, oh, hey, you remember all those exotics that everybody was walking around in back, in 2020? Well, they make like kind of like a comeback as far as like the art and the style, and that is how they'll reintroduce it in one of the expansions. I feel that's probably where they're headed with it. They would, of course, like to add those things at launch, but that is a ton of additional animating, mesh work, and all of the texturing that goes in with that is an enormous amount of work, and it's just really tough to add that kind of stuff to the game. But I think it's something that they realize is really important. So we'll probably see it at some point, but not. I wouldn't cross your fingers for launch, because you gotta remember, they do DLC like the old way of doing expansions and DLCs. It's why they don't call them DLC, they call them expansions, because they're actually full of story, tons of new content, tons of new information, and I'm thinking that's probably where it's going to be. So
now, would you want to know that now is the question I'm thinking about right now. Like there's so much stuff that's happening with the game. Would you want that information right away? Wouldn't you want something being specifically left out so you can be surprised, right? I think those elements are still good for us in gaming. I mean, I remember back in Nintendo, I think I got my Nintendo in '87. There are certain games that we played, we had to go into this Saturday morning show to figure out how to do certain things because we didn't know at the time what it was. And I think those moments, a lot of games are going back to, like from the Metroidvania type games and all those things. There's just certain experiences that you don't want to know all the pieces right away. You think you do, but it takes away from the awesomeness that you're about to play. So I don't know.
I 100% agree, and I think we saw that when Keanu Reeves stepped on the stage at E3. By the way, were you there for that? Were you in the Microsoft press conference?
No, Daniela was. I was on a plane heading there.
Oh, I see. Okay. And what was her reaction? Like, was she calling you very excited, or what was your reaction when you found out about it?
Well, I think that Keanu is amazing. His career has been super dope, right? We've seen that. She's definitely excited about Keanu, and I think that dude is such a humble guy. And when you watch his career and what he's been able to do, and all the stuff that he's been in, I'm like, why wouldn't you have him? You know what I mean? Like in the game. So there's that excitement that surrounds that, and his character is almost like a renegade type counselor. Be like, hey man, let's cut school kind of guy. You know what I mean? But we're still learning how he plays a factor. But it's not just a small piece, as they mentioned. He plays a pretty large role in the game as you're navigating it. But I think it's exciting, man, to see that.
Right. And then on the point that you were making previously, the fact that we got to be surprised by that and haven't known about it for years. Well, actually, I mean, he only joined the project about a year ago, I believe, and so he was a more recent addition to the game. But they were able to keep that a secret for a very long time, which is quite
Not
surprising.
Actually, again, the character was always in the game.
The
It's just
character was, but
they had locked down his portrayal
yeah.
and his acting within the game. So I always want to throw that out because it's something that people can misunderstand at times, I think.
So Keanu was playing that role is what I mean. It was something that was only relatively recent when you consider the entire span of development of this game.
Yeah, no, nobody. I can't say that. I'll speak for myself. I didn't expect him to be in the game. Okay, so seeing that was like, okay, Keanu, do what you got to do, bro. You know what I mean? Like, let's do it. And I think that is, I'm just excited for games and experiences at this point. Even games like the looter shooters, and I'll just keep it broad. And as I'm thinking about this particular point, they're making strides to be better. Depending on the company that you're thinking about right now, as I'm saying that, and I think we should appreciate that.
I agree. Excellent. Yeah, we there is a tendency to focus on the negative to a large extent, and in some ways I believe we need to, especially when we're in a position like this hosting a podcast that has, a part of what we want to do is be an advocate for the gaming community. And so when the gaming industry is going the wrong way, we want to call that out, and we want to say, no, that, stop doing that. That is not good for us, and that's not good for anybody or for the industry as a whole. But when things are going right, we really want to focus on the positive and shout that out as well. And we think CD Projekt Red is doing a lot right. And whenever we see other companies going in the right direction as well, we really try and focus on that and try and really bring a balance to that. But I mean, you're absolutely right. The experiences that we are able to get from games is mind blowing these days. Things that childhood me would never have thought at all possible. And I remember playing old Sierra adventure games, really pixely graphics and the clunky typing things in interface, but just still getting lost in these adventures. And the fact that that was able to bring a sense of adventure and a real sense of exploration to me as a child. But now we have these immersive graphics, we have full 3D environments and these living, vibrant worlds. It can just add so much more, and it's an exciting time to be a gamer for sure. On the note of graphics, Evan Parkinson is wondering how close to photorealistic graphics is the character creation from what you saw.
So it's the character creation as it relates to graphics. So we were first excited to be there, right? Because that getting in there in that room is one thing. Seeing what we're seeing, because they had it on a projector, and we almost wanted to jump in there
Jump
before
into
it
the
looked.
screen.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, And then the other thing about it is so I want to frame it anticipation and excitement because we still have to wait, okay, for this thing to come out, right? So we're seeing how beautiful it is on screen, and then it's like, man, I gotta wait to even get this experience. So for the context of your setup, if you have to improve your setup between now and April, do that. But it looks fantastic. The detail on the character, the detail on the prosthetics or whatever you want to call the special pieces that they have on them, as a way by way of the character itself, looks very very detailed. And I think that you can frame that with where like a M cable. I don't know if you guys heard of that, but that cable has like a processor built in to make sure that when the video feed pops on your screen, that's even better looking. And I think they just announced. You guys can correct me on that. The size is 80 plus gigs or something like that. I don't know if that's official
That was
as it
leaked
relates
on
to
PlayStation's PlayStation Europe website. I actually have that up here because something we were going to touch on the show
yeah.
today.
So expect, don't be concerned about that because it looks, if you thought Witcher looked amazing, you know that they know what they're doing in that department. I think that's where I want to end that piece with.
Absolutely. And Witcher did look amazing. It looks, I mean, especially back in, when it first came out. You look at it now, the graphics look a little dated, but then you have to remember how old the game is and how fast graphics evolve. But yeah, I'm absolutely anticipating a fantastic looking game. Paris asks, or says, I have a question, Andrew. What are your thoughts on choices having long-term repercussions, building off of what CDPR started with The Witcher 3?
I like that because it gives us the opportunity to take responsibility for the actions that we take. So I like the fact that we're able to immerse ourselves in that experience and be upset, be emotional about how to impact decision C. So I think that I'm looking forward to that particular part of the game as well, because we have to take responsibility for those actions, and even broaden it from the game to our world of social media. There are certain things that we do online that has repercussions, right? And I think that relationships will be lost and different opportunities that we're potentially getting we won't get because of how we said something or how we approach a particular topic or person online. I think that the broadening it even with that, we just have to be careful. Now, yeah, you can go back and replay the game and do something else and pivot another way. But in real life, you may not necessarily have an opportunity to make amends or, ask for forgiveness or get forgiveness for a particular situation. So I think that that weight of it is something that we should look forward to, but we should really be very careful in the decisions that we make.
Interesting.
Right on. Are you familiar with the gameplay demo that came out of 2018's E3? It was shown at It was shown at E3, and then 3 months later, something very similar was released publicly. Have you watched that?
I've watched it, but it was a while ago, so I don't recall the bits and details of that. But I remember that it was released. It was about 48 or so minutes, give or take, available to anybody that want to watch it. So, but in terms of the details in the video, recall as much of it as I do as the recent one.
Okay. Someone was asking if you were able to compare and contrast the two. But if you don't,
I think the only thing I would say, the vibe was different. The vibe was different between the two videos, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'll say that. And I think that consumption of these things, because quite frankly, when you watch the current thing that's available, you can hit pause and and reflect on the last 5 minutes, right? We can do that, right? We can't do that with the 2019 stuff because it's not out yet. But I think that since you have the time now, so I'll just prep it like this. Since you have the time now, watch that again, fresh, right, closer to the post Gamescom time frame. If I were to make a recommendation, right, I would say watch that 45 minute thing around that time. Okay, get your popcorn, get prepped, and watch it in segments of 10 minutes, and then reflect on that. So when you get to the new one, when they decide to drop that, you'll be ready. So having said that, I think the vibe of the videos were different. It's not necessarily a bad thing. They both look beautiful, and they both have different elements that they were presenting at that time. And I think they those because they still have amazing content in that.
That makes the most amount of sense, I think. I mean, it's it is evolving. I've said it before and I'll say it again. So the most common negative comment about the game so far has been the gunplay, but they've said, and they've really emphasized, that this is an RPG first and a shooter second, and that the engine is not designed to be it's just simply is not designed to be a shooter. So you are going to not have that same experience as you would, playing a dice game or something like that. But that doesn't mean that is a detriment to the game. I really don't think it is, because it's more, if you're just a hardcore shooter, then and that's all you want to do is, if you're not shooting something. I've seen people play games where it's like they're just a shooter. They can't process something that's not that looks like a shooter and isn't. I remember watching somebody play through the first Mass Effect, and the only game they had played was COD and Halo.
Right.
And they couldn't, they're running around, in the first, it was after the first story mission, you get back to the ship, and he just wanted to go through and shoot up the whole ship. And it's like, what? No, there's story here. Go do the story, and then you can shoot at the thing. And he's like, no, I just want to start shooting everything. And he couldn't get past that. He quit, and he rage quit because he couldn't shoot up the damn ship that he was on. It's like, dude, so little attention span for anything other. And really, it's just, the game is not made for those types of people. But I think overall, if you are a fan of games in general, the minor difference between it being a top 10 ranked shooter, as far as just the mechanics of the shooting goes, versus a top 9, then there's no, that shouldn't ever cause you to to dislike a game, because the shooting mechanic was a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. It's like, come on, seriously. So
yeah, so it's nitpicking at that point, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of nitpicking, and that's if you're nitpicking,
yeah. So they bring out the shooting mechanics on screen, and we're watching that. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and based on what you've mentioned, I'm like, okay, it's not COD, it's not Destiny or anything like that, but it's cool for what it is, right? I can just get through this part and go back to the other aspects I have to worry about, the decisions, right, the people, and the conversations, and who do I need to trust, and where do I need to take this bike next? Do I need to go to the 6th part of the game, or do I need to roll into the Badlands? I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things, okay, I should be concerned about than how the frame and the hitboxes are for who I'm hitting. You know what I mean? So I think that we're nitpicking here. If we are, I think that my thought process, even talking about it now, is I am making sure that I'm guarding anything that's considered negative, in my personal opinion, away from anybody that wants to know about what we saw. Right? I'm intentionally doing that. Want is to say something that I thought was not so great, and you end up enjoying that, and you have that tainted prophetic, if you will, information that I've ruined that part of the game for you, and I don't want that. So a lot of questions, I'm not saying you guys are doing this, I'm just thinking out loud, that people have asked locally, or family members, so how is this, how is that? I always say it's great, right? Because what I think may not be so great, because I've seen so many games played at home in the last 10 years or whatever. My frame of mind as it relates to games and those experiences are different, right? And yours too, based on the games that you've played or experienced or probably reviewed or anything like that. So I think that individuals who are not necessarily doing media yet or any reporting or any press thing yet, they don't have those access yet or gamer badges yet or whatever. And I think that we have to guard a lot of information, because we want them to have the most amazing thing ever, right? Once they get it. So yeah.
I think that's an excellent perspective to approach it with, and especially when you're talking about a demo that you saw at an event like E3. You're seeing a slice of the game. You're also seeing a slice that's 10 months away from final release. And who knows how old the actual build that you saw was. So you're seeing a slice of it, and so we're getting these comments from some media like, okay, the shooting looks a little clunky. And perhaps that's true, but perhaps it's also the person that was playing the demo. Perhaps, I mean, there's any number of factors that it could be. And when you're talking about a gameplay element like that, until you're experiencing it yourself, you don't know what it feels like. You can talk about how it looks, but you don't know what it feels like. And when you're in a game like this, it's the feeling, the responsiveness of the controls, the precision of the aiming, that kind of a thing. You have to try it for yourself before you actually have any kind of an idea. And so when you're just watching somebody play it, I don't think it's possible to get an accurate idea of how it actually feels to play it. But
I want to lean in on that a little bit, because Daniela, she played Final Fantasy VII, right? I was next to her watching her. I don't know what it played like. Cool, but I played Borderlands 3, and you better be glad that they did that game, because it is just as amazing as you saw it. Amazing. That's a fact. Okay. So if you love Borderlands and you love gunplay, you love a lot of loot, a gazillion weapons or whatever, be excited for that, because it played really well on the show floor. I played that. Right. But she played Final Fantasy VII. I saw her and she was really excited about that. I was like, it looked cool. It looked cool. But I'll have a different excitement level once I play it personally. But Borderlands 3, it's played perfect.
I'll have to ask you about the other games that you saw and experienced while you were at E3. Maybe if we have time, we'll get to that at the end of the show. But that's exciting to hear your opinion about Borderlands 3, and especially having played it. That's another one we're looking forward to. We don't cover it as extensively. But
well, we don't cover it as extensively, except we did announce to the world that it was coming, and we were the first to do so.
We did leak that bit of information about it, and that kind of got us onto the train of that. But I mean,
Nice.
that's one we are definitely looking forward to. Unfortunately, just don't have the time to dive into it as deeply as certain other games. But there's other YouTubers like Supmato out there who are doing a great job of that. He does exclusively Borderlands 3, or Borderlands content in general, but especially Borderlands 3. And so it's fantastic. We've had him on the show, and he's been a lot of fun. Actually, if you want to talk about Borderlands 3 with somebody, we recommend you hit him up. He is deep into that.
We'll be covering it. Yeah, we'll be covering it as best as we can. But there's a bunch of other stuff, and at the current moment, we're very seriously considering not touching anything that's on the Epic Game Store, just out of just on principle. So we'll see about that.
All right. So you were talking about the perspective and background that you come to games with based on the games that you play, the games that you've played previously, and how that colors your experience of a game or your anticipation of a particular game. You have some added perspective from a cultural standpoint. You were very excited to see the Haitian culture represented in the game, and there were these characters. You'll have to remind me what the name of the gang was, but these characters speaking fluent Creole. You mentioned that in your reaction vid, and you talked about how you didn't need a translation. It was bang on. It was perfectly right. And now Mike Pondsmith actually referenced that fact that they got the Creole right in the game in one of his Reddit responses to some of the criticisms of the game. I'm wondering if he was actually referring to your reaction when he said that. But anyway,
maybe the conversation with him, I think he was referencing what I was saying, because he was like, "Oh, were they, Trinidad?" Or they were like, "Oh, they were Haitian." Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that portion was related to me personally, but yeah. So I think, if I remember correctly, for you guys who are going to listen and watch other content, there is a transplant that you can get for understanding language, right, in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But, when they said that, I was like, "That's cool. That's cool. I think that's exciting." Right? I got really excited about that. And then when they started speaking Creole, I was like, "Man, this is amazing." So I think that, started the whole excitement of watching and listening to, so you have the words on the bottom, and then they're talking. I'm like, this is cool. Like, I really dig the fact that they did that. And I think that, broadening that a little bit, everyone loves seeing that as it relates to their culture, right? Their language. And I think that, it just happens to be that there's Haitian individuals, the Voodoo Boys, in the game, as they're called. And I think that, that's exciting for not only me, but the fact that, CD Projekt and the team, they're trying different things as it relates to different experiences, different cultures and stuff. And we should be excited about that. Next major game could be a language that is remote to us, and someone out there, whether it's a big percentage or small percentage, understand that. And I think that is neat, right? That is neat. And I think that, we should be excited about that.
I like the fact that they are going with, having the characters speak in their native language, and then having the option for you to translate it through a cybernetic implant. I think that's a fantastic way to go with it. I think that's going to bring a lot of immersion and realism.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, like in a culture like this, and in the future where you have this big melting pot in Night City, you're going to hear a lot of people speaking in different languages. Not everybody's going to just be speaking English. So I think that's a fantastic element of it. So, being of Haitian descent, you were very excited to see your culture, your people, as you put it in the reaction video. And so I'm gonna ask what might be a bit of a spicy question, but is representation? This is a big word that gets thrown around a lot. Is that important to you? Representation in games, having your, whatever your cultural, ethnic, whichever, aspect of yourself that you want to talk about, having that in a game, is that important to you, or is it an added bonus that just gets you really excited? I'm curious your perspective on this.
Okay, can we go back a couple of years,
Sure.
if I may?
Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so as I'm thinking about it, before I started seeing, or paying attention to games that had a shade of brown in it, um, I realized that, the games have the option for us to have that shade. I didn't realize how important it was for me, that I saw that particular shade. Right, same thing for movies like, the Joy Luck Club, or movies like, Crazy Rich Asians, right? Those kind of movies, or Black Panther, or we can go on and on. I think that, once you start seeing things like that on screen, where the whole cast, represents your shade of whatever, I think, you are very, very proud of that, about that, and you want to see more of that. Why it takes so long for certain demographics to see that art, as I'm thinking about it, that's because that's how I want to frame it. Is Why does it take so long? I don't know. But once games started incorporating what I believe should already have been there in the first place, I think that's a step in the right direction. Is it important to me? Absolutely. It have been done earlier? Absolutely. And I think that when we see things like that, we should celebrate it, not so much as we mentioned earlier, look down on what is, what isn't, and create social justice moments. But it is very important to me, and I didn't realize that until later in
Okay,
my
excellent.
years, if you will.
Excellent. I mean, it is great for me to get some perspective on that, because that's, I mean, as far as my own, Western Caucasian culture is everywhere in media, and so it's good to get some perspective from somebody who's from a
As
different
as I'm
background.
thinking, yeah, as I'm thinking about it, Joy Luck Club was all Asian cast, right? I'm thinking right the movie.
I'm not even familiar with that movie, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah. So before you get a whole bunch of random comments saying this dude didn't even say the right movie, I think it was that movie that was done with all Asian cast before Crazy Rich Asian. So I just want to add that bit in there just for that.
Okay, fair enough. And while we're diving into a bit of a spicier side of things, what's your reaction to some of the press that came out suggesting that CD Projekt might not be handling race well in this game, specifically this predominantly black gang called the
Right?
Animals that got a lot of criticism, and Mike Pondsmith pushed back on that quite a bit and gave some explanation. But then we had other articles coming out saying, in-game context doesn't matter. That was literally the headline of one article, saying in-game context doesn't matter if it's referring, if it's contributing to prejudice, something to that effect.
Okay,
And
so I'll lead into to that. Um, so 10 years ago, I started a podcast we talked about, right? Over the years, I realized that my voice didn't matter as much in the beginning for a lot of individuals, and individuals started going back into the catalog to listen to a lot of stuff that we've done the last 5 years, right? So voice matters. Information that we give matters. We have a responsibility to the individuals that listen to us, watch us, right? That kind of a thing. And I think for individuals who are on that big platform, whether they walked in and it was already prepped for them, whether it was a big name, big outlet, or whatever, or they built it from scratch like we did or we may have, right? I think there's a different weight of trust fund babies, if you will, um, effect to that, right? You walk into all this money, right? Versus you have to build it from scratch and have a different appreciation for it, right? Or you can recover different with information that you dish out to individuals, whether you care about that information that's going out, kind of like the pillow, right? You open up the pillow, all the feathers are out. Now you can't get all that back, right? And I think that there's certain individuals who are on these platforms have you. They're like trust fund babies, right? They walk into a particular spot, like a IGN or a GameSpot or whatever, and they're somewhat careless with their responsibility, or they may not have been prepped or had a great orientation to realize, bro, you're cis, whatever, whoever it is, you have a big platform here, so you can't just go around just saying whatever you want. And I think that it's irresponsible. Leading into answer your question directly, I think it's very irresponsible, and I think that having built 500 episodes we're at now, whatever, I can't recover like other demographics. So I'll say that could be spicy. We can go run down that hole, which we probably won't. But I can't recover as fast as certain demographics when they do certain things, silly things, foolish things, irresponsible things. And I think that when you have a platform like IGN or GameSpot or whatever, those major names or outlets, you have to understand the weight that comes with that, or the culture or the executive leadership of that particular outlet. They're not doing a fantastic job to mention how great or how grave the responsibility is for you to say whatever you have to say on your article once you hit publish. So there's that.
journalistic responsibility. You're an
Who
advocate
knew,
for it.
right?
Hey, that's fantastic. Fantastic. I don't think I don't think I've heard a better response than that to this whole issue. But yeah, the responsibility. I feel these outlets, they have a responsibility to investigate the context of what they're criticizing and not just do a surface level analysis and then put something out there for rage clicks. I think that's horribly irresponsible journalism, and it's been sickening to me reading. When I read that headline, "In-game context doesn't matter," that was sickening to me, because if you start going down that road, you're going to destroy most of literature, most of the good movies out there. Like, a movie that really impacted me personally was 12 Years a Slave. Have you seen that?
No, purposefully I did not.
Fair enough. It's got some hard stuff to watch in it, but really, it had a profound impact on me. And that movie would not exist if you went and said, in-game context or in-movie context doesn't matter for some of the things that are portrayed and said.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, it's a movie about slavery in the United States, and it shows some of the brutality. It shows black people being mistreated and being called very nasty things, and attempted to portray it very realistically, to make the point of to really create an impact of how horrible this was. Right, and it was an interesting story about a guy who was he was a freed black man, but then he was recaptured illegally and sold as a slave again, and was in slavery for 12 years, and then it was a very impactful story. It was very I believe it was based on a true story, if I recall. But
Yeah, it got an Oscar.
if you start to say the context doesn't matter, no, you can't show or portray certain things. You could say that movie would contributes to racism because it shows black people being treated in horrible ways. That's the same thing if you say the context of the media doesn't matter. Am I being clear about that?
I understand what you're saying. Even recently with Ava DuVernay's "When They See Us," where that situation with the boys that they were falsely accused of rape, and that lady is really getting the quote unquote karma that she deserves based on that whole thing of just those experiences are real to us, right? And I think one of the reasons I shy away from watching a lot of those pieces of art, if you will, is because they feel so real to me, and which is why I kind of shy away from them. I love psychological thrillers and movies and experiences that make you think about different things, like Luther, et cetera, et cetera. But because they feel so real, certain things I just can't watch.
Well, that is very fair, and I certainly don't blame you for that at all.
So yeah, no, just I mean, in general, it's context does matter, and of course, when you're touching on like heavy subjects, it's like you need to kind of give room to that and treat it with at least a little bit of respect. But then also, that not everybody can kind of go through that. It's like, there's a couple of situations that I tend to avoid as far as like storytelling or movies goes, because it's just too much for me. But getting back to the game itself, there's a couple questions in here, but anything else as far as the general representation or the you went to the private screening, not the public screening, correct? I'm pretty sure that's what I saw the video in.
Of it, correct.
Yeah. So in that, was there anything else there that kind of caught your eye? Not with the game itself, but with the room or with the way that the staff were talking or mentioning anything like that. And then there's another question about the music that I want to get to.
I think that one of the things that we actually recorded about and aesthetically pleasing. And I think that could easily be taken out of context if you weren't in the room. And aside from that was a conversation based on the person navigating the experience, if you want to say that. But having a personal conversation with that individual, I never got the vibe that that was the case, that it was racially infused, if you will, right? So I didn't get any vibes like that. As far as the game itself, I think the main thing overall, looking back or thinking back at the experience, is the breadth of the world, how vibrant and connected it is. Never know who can be your best buddy or your worst enemy, and I think that that situation in it is amazing to be a part of, which is what I was saying earlier. You just feel like you just want to jump in there and know for a fact that it's a crazy world already, but you just want to experience it because it looks so real. Like this world could exist, and like a Matrix or something like that, But it's exciting to prep for that kind of experience, and I really can't wait for the reaction that will come out for individuals who will see the
I
video
meant
later.
I meant the pre-room where you went to go see the video. Anything in the room outside, like in the at E3 there.
Yeah,
Was
so
there?
so there's art, there's they had the bar set up and different things like that. Just what you may expect, depending if um, you ever go into like a screening like that, they prep you for the movie experience, right? So when you go to the movie theater, there's art on the wall, there's pictures of that particular character or characters, right? So they're prepping you to usher you in to that experience, right? So there's things like that with the artwork, that some of the pictures that they started releasing already, I think, on
Mhm.
their Twitter feed and stuff like that. So you had stuff like that. They had, a area that you can grab like a Coke or something like that. So it was more, I wouldn't say graffiti like, but the art that you see in the world is very similar to that kind of art before they ushered you into that
Hmm. Yeah, we got some interesting kind of leaks of it where people were like trying to like put out the hidden, like, because I did they tell you not to take pictures directly of any of that art or of the bar or anything like that?
room. They did not. They did not. I think
Because
we were free to do that. I didn't get
there's
any
a
pushback
yeah.
on taking pictures or anything like that. I just took a picture of the Cyberpunk thing when I went into the main room before the actual room, and but no, I didn't get any pushback on you can't take pictures in a particular thing.
That's
Didn't have that
funny
issue.
because there were so many people who started sending me like sneak pics that they got
Right.
of the exterior room, the bar and the photos and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, I got this there. I don't know if I can use this, but you have to like crop it or whatever. And I was like, you realize that this has already been like put out on their official Twitter, right? It's like
Right,
there's
right. No, there were no pushback on taking pictures into that room before they brought you into the screening area. It was just like, hey, enjoy. There were the stools that you can relax. No pushback at all.
mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's hilarious. It's funny. But all right. Cool. So now about the music, do you remember very much of the music that was in the gameplay at all?
To be fair, no.
Oh, okay. Is that there's yeah.
Enjoyed. It was part of the experience. It's kind of like when you hear like Halo music or Destiny music. It's part of the experience, right? Or even their trailers. Specifically, as I'm thinking about Destiny trailers, there's just something magical that happens when whoever does that does an amazing job. And I think because the music is supposed to be part of the experience, you get lost in it, if that's fair. But in terms of the music, I think it was great for what I heard. But in terms of specifics on how it compared to the previous
Mm,
45 minute that was dropped, I
yeah.
couldn't tell you.
There's a lot of people asking about the question about the music, and we've had very few people actually, like very few of the people that went to see the gameplay commented directly on the music. Most of them were like, "Yeah, it's good," but I didn't really focus on it. So
Right.
that's pretty standard. But the thing that I think some of these questions are getting at is because there's a lot of mystery surrounding the ultimate soundtrack of this game and exactly where it falls into in regards to like what exactly they're going to showcase because there's so many people working on it from an interesting perspective. You know, there's lots of rumors about Lady Gaga having done something with it. There's lots of rumors about the core people that are involved in it and have been involved in it from the get-go are like big names in the music industry. And so I think just to kind of comment directly to the audience, it's like, I don't think we're going to see or hear that aspect of the music until after the game comes out. I think that it's going to be kept pretty quiet right up until probably a few weeks right before release, and then we're going to then they're going to blast it out, and it's going to be amazing at that point. And they own all of it.
Trending for them anyway, as we've seen. And I think that as we think about what is currently available with the piece that was released last year, there was definitely a tone difference with what I heard last year and this year. But it's not, like you said, it wasn't really a focus because the score, if you will, immersed us into the world, right? And I think that by design, when it's done well, especially like photographers in the room, when it's done well, you shouldn't even see them. Are right. And I think as I think about the experiences, whether it's a photographer in a room doing their thing versus a score pulling you into the experience, I think if it's so subtle that you don't notice it, I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, because the one thing that I think is in there that has not been put out is any music by the actual Johnny Silverhand and the samurai group that is predominantly featured in the art and in the backstory. And those are the songs that I think that have been being worked on, and that we're not going to see those until they hit. And I think those songs actually will have a chance to probably even like get onto the top charts, in real life, get onto those top charts, because they, like I said, they've been pulling in huge talent for this, and we don't even know everything because they've been keeping a lot of this stuff quiet. I mean, if they can keep Keanu freaking Reeves, portraying the main kind of like this main antagonist slash like voice of conscience throughout the entire game, and do all of his audio work, filming, everything, and not have any of that leak, then I don't think anybody knows exactly where or what we're going to be seeing as far as music goes. So,
Hey.
I am excited that they are creating original music and that they're going to own it all. And like it's going to, we're not going to be hearing sort of 2019 top 40 music. We're going to be hearing 2077 music. And there's all kinds of lore behind that. It's astounding how much was poured into the Cyberpunk world by its creators, and a ton of that is going to be coming out in this game. It's fantastic.
Fantastic.
There was a little bit of news this week, or just yesterday I read about it. The amount of hard drive space that this is going to take up was posted on the PlayStation Store for I believe it was their European page or their Great Britain page. Anyway, so this is a placeholder. So, bit of a caveat on this. This is a placeholder, but it's because it's getting reported out there that the size is at least 80 gigabytes. Well, we don't know for sure. The game is still 10 months away from release. So, the size can increase or decrease. But they've put as a placeholder on the PlayStation Store that it'll be a minimum of 80 gigabytes of hard drive space that you're going to require. That's on the PlayStation version. I imagine it's going to be comparable for the PC version. And so we are looking at a pretty darn big game. That's larger than The Witcher 3 and all of its DLCs put together. Now, it's not the largest game that's come out. Red Dead Redemption 2 was bigger than that, I believe. There's some other ones that I read about that were as big or larger. But we are still talking about a massive game, plus more could be added, or things might... It could wind up being smaller than that. There's a chance of that as well. But anyway, we are looking at a fantastically massive game.
I think as I'm thinking about it now is you should prep for that, right? I think based on how we're things or review copies and different things or hardware sent to us, that's not everybody's experience. I understand that, and I think that for a fact that the game comes out in April, right? And I think you can prepare for that. If you don't have the hard drive yet, hey, start putting 10 here, 15 there, that kind of thing, to prep for that. So when it actually comes out, you're not like, hey, I don't have the hard drive space. I got to move one game over for something else. For a fact that it's going to be huge, and prep for it now. We're in the end of June, right?
Yeah.
So you have time.
Yeah.
We do.
So and like start putting aside some money now, and then wait for those deals to come in around the holidays. It's gonna be big. If you're in the States, of course, you got Black Friday, and then you've got if in most of the rest of the world, especially England and Canada, and you got Boxing Day, and then
When is Prime? Prime is soon, right?
Prime is coming up, yeah, and then you also have the time period in January, which might be your best bet because that's often when there's a lot of deals on, and they just want to move stuff. But that usually, typically, in my experience, it's the best time to buy something, but it's also requires you to be pretty good at negotiation, because you're not going for sales. You're going in to talk to a sales guy to see if you can get a deal because he really, really needs the sale in the month of January, right? So yeah, that's something to look look at, because because the closer you get, the less you're gonna end up paying, I think, just due to all the new stuff that's coming out. So yeah, so it'll be really interesting. I'm probably going to be setting up a total VR setup too at some point, so that'll be really interesting. So
I have the hard drive space. What I need is a graphics card upgrade. Definitely going to be putting some money aside for that, because I want this game to look as fantastic as possible. The fact that I'll be making videos for it is a good excuse to upgrade as well. So, all right. Well, I mean, it's been fantastic getting your thoughts and opinions about Cyberpunk.
I have two quick things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you aware of The Onion at all?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. Well, darn. In that case, we won't touch on this, but The Onion has a fantastic article out today on Cyberpunk 2077. Came out yesterday. And they also have, and just to kind of give you context of what The Onion is and what they do, they also have a review on Crash Team Racing and how it delivers speed, savagery, and the fun that the reviewer hasn't had since his third DUI. So,
The Onion is a satire and a news website. Everything on it is fake, and it's a comedy website basically.
But so they've been around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were huge back back in 2008. One of these companies that is really fallen out of favor, but not because of their reporting, because it's all satire, it's all comedy, it's all a joke. It's that, as one of the head editors there put at some point in the last year or two, it's like that The Onion doesn't need to exist anymore because the news is so insane right now and so crazy that they can't. It's hard for them to beat the news because of the insanity that is currently, current year.
Normal now, basically.
Yeah. It's like if they had written, some of the articles that they wrote back in 2008 are now things that are legitimately happening in real life. It's like there was a joke that they had made. They'd printed out about there being 2 World Cup soccer matches, so that way more people could have more fun and there would be more winners. And it's now something that's legitimately being pushed, and it's like the stuff that used to be the joke is now the reality, and it's like, wow, we can't even keep up with this. But they had a really interesting one And they even used a fake screenshot from the character creator that came out a couple of years ago. The title is CD Projekt Red announces Cyberpunk 2077 will have a gender-neutral character creator. However, everybody in the game will be Christian. And then it goes on to kind of like make some pokes and jabs and funny statements about that. And it's like, yeah, it's even though none of what they're making, because it's funny, they quote a guy from the actual company, but it's just a really, really long name that is impossible to pronounce. And they're kind of making fun of the whole Polish, names being really hard to pronounce. But they kind of poke some fun at it. But yeah, it's completely made up, and it's pretty funny because they also have like Beto O'Rourke is now joining Smash Ultimate as the first presidential candidate who is a available DLC fighter. So it's kind of like yeah, people don't believe, it's purely meant for comedy, but it's like some people are quoting this article on websites, and it's like I want to mention this.
Are they actually?
If yes. Well, this the Beto thing, they've got one or two other things. They got an article about some Steam games, and it's like, yeah, people are actually quoting this, going, "What's going on here? Why?" And it's like, dude, wow! It even says satire in the piece in the Google link. It's like satire, big bold letters. It's like people don't. I don't think people know how to translate satire anymore.
Well, speaking of needing to know the context of what you're referring to, absolutely. All right, so I wasn't impressed, honestly, with the with the Onion article about Cyberpunk 2077. It was not their best work. I'll just put that out there. But anyway, so Andrew, just to wrap up the show here, what were some of the other things that you saw at E3 that got you excited, and what was the whole experience of being there like for you this year? We'll round out the show with that.
Okay, cool. So the experience of the show was amazing because this year we decided to focus on more video content. So pretty much every video that we have on my YouTube channel right now was done with a phone, an audio adapter. That's it, right? So I think that when people overthink how they're going to approach covering an event, I think being prepared is the best thing that you can do. It doesn't have to be anything super extravagant, super expensive. So there's that. Overall, the best thing I really enjoyed playing was Borderlands 3. That was amazing. The fact that we focused on the content that we created this year in this manner was more impactful because we love video overall. So if you're looking into doing anything with content, whether you're starting now or today, you should really look at if your phone is capable of doing whatever 720 or 1080. Starting there is more impactful than not doing anything at all. So there's that. I think E3, this is my 5th or 6th, I think, at this point. Second, I think this is our first year as second year as press, and that means the world to me because I was able to bring someone out there to cover the show as press under my brand, right? So that's a whole nother level of wow, this really happened. So I think so there is that, and enjoying navigating, prepping for that, hydrating, eating properly. You won't get proper sleep. That's not happening because the whole week you're in and out kind of thing. And so overall, I think it was amazing. It was the most, even though we didn't get as interviews as we did last year, I believe, but in terms of how it was created, how it was published, that was the most impactful because everyone loves video. So that happened. So we're excited about that.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think we'll just wrap up the show there because I don't know how to talk. There were a couple of other things we were going to talk about today, but I don't want to dilute this.
I'll say one thing before we wrap up. important to look at any of the content in the future. So there's a difference, a major difference between offenses and being offended. Okay, so offenses will come from all angles, but being offended is a decision. So as you look at whether it's a game or whatever's happening on social media, offenses will always come, but you, okay, being offended, that's a decision. And I think I'll wrap with that.
Wow. Well, thank you
Really
for
good.
that. That's a profound statement, and we really appreciate that. Absolutely. All right. Well, and thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us for the show today. And all of you in the live chat who are busy talking and asking questions, we appreciate you as well. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, please join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. And also, if you haven't yet, please slam the like button on this video and also hit the subscribe button for all kinds of other Cyberpunk 2077 content and a lot of other content as well. We cover a variety of games, but we've definitely been heavy into covering the Cyberpunk 2077 content. We are super excited for this game, and we're going to have a lot of content on it going forward. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, Shannon Vega, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters, and also Evolution. Don't know how I missed you in the list there. Our channel members, Captain Dammit, Jason Cropper, Mr. Pazernik, and Jer Schultz. And all of you who like, share, and comment on this content really helps all of us. It really helps this channel to grow, and we really, really appreciate it. Also, to those of you listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, and any of the other podcast services where this show goes out to, we appreciate you being there, listening as well, and interacting on those platforms. And feel free to join us Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings for the live show on YouTube, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Asheninity. On behalf of Subsidian and Andrew Alliance, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you very soon.